So I want to talk about this story now, which is New Zealand. So let's talk about New Zealand, which is now moving to ban cigarettes for all future generations. This is an amazing story. When I saw this, I said, what? So anyone born after the year 2008 will not be able to buy cigarettes or tobacco products in their lifetime. Ever.
Period. Zero.
Under the law, like if you show your driver's license and you're born after 2008, they're going to be like, sorry, you cannot buy them. If you were born in 2007, you're still good. You can still get cancer and you can still go and buy them if you want to. It's going to be enacted next year. The move is part of a huge crackdown across New Zealand on smoking, to try to crack down on smoking in general, but over the entire country.
Yeah, so this is now one of the toughest cigarette laws in existence. And it's interesting specifically because we had a chat yesterday that said the government's number one job is to protect us. And I've been thinking about this a lot because I wasn't sure that I agreed completely. Is the government's number one job to protect us? But if that is true, is it not incumbent on the government to take away things that are harmful, right?
Right.
This is something the American government has really not wanted to do. They don't want to take chemicals out of our personal care products. They don't want to take away harmful products that are bad for us. And New Zealand
Wait a minute. I thought that President Biden is going to hold a summit today over the next few days telling us why we are the greatest democracy in the world and other people need to follow our lead.
Well, does a democracy mean that this is the big government, small government debate, right? Does that mean that you take away things that are harmful, right? If the government's job is to protect, that's wonderful. I can probably give New Zealand a list of a whole bunch of other things that it should take away if it's really protecting human biology.
Right. If that's their main goal,
right.
then.
But this specifically is something that, look, people smoking costs the government. It shortens the lifespan of workers that the government wants. It forces the government to pay for medical care that it doesn't necessarily, that's expensive, right? So of course the government does not want people to die of cigarettes.
Becky Medveds brings up the point, are they going to ban alcohol next? She asks that in our chat. It's a great question.
Yes.
Even Robin asked that question.
Or sugar.
Or sugar? Yeah, or sugar. Sugar is a poison. It has the same as Dr. Richard Lustig points out. He's an amazing doctor. His books on sugar, he specifically points out that sugar, when it hits the body just the same way that rat poison hits the body.
Yes. Exactly. So it's interesting, right? It's an interesting debate because you can applaud a move like this, and it will absolutely prevent millions of people from becoming addicted because they cannot then just, you think about most people don't plan to become smokers. Nobody thinks, oh, when I get older, I'm going to smoke. It's so cool, and I'm going to suffer all of these negative health benefits as a result. No, it's just people do it socially. Someone is able to get hold of a pack of cigarettes, or they think maybe I'll try this as an impulse buy. And those are the things that really, if someone really wants to smoke, they can have someone else buy it for them.
There'll be a black market, as Cher Marie in our chat says. They're going to be buying it on the black market. Absolutely. Just look at prisons, right? How do you get? There's literally drugs are in prisons. How are inmates able to get their hands on heroin? Like they get it in prison. So they're going to be, if someone really wants to get cigarettes, but it is an island country, it's going to be difficult. We'll see. Actually,
statistics are that 13% of New Zealand adults smoke out of a population of 5 million. It's down from 18% almost a decade ago. So it is in decline. But most of the people who smoke are the indigenous Maori population. Is that how you say that?
I don't know.
And that is 31%. So the indigenous people are actually who are smoking more than non-indigenous people. So yes, it absolutely is something now the government is going to have to police a black market for tobacco. But I think that it's an interesting debate, and I can see both sides of, yes, you should do this, but is it the government's job to protect you, right? Like these are the kinds of things you used to cover on Fox. Like, should the government take away the Twinkie machine? Oh, we can't have Twinkies. We have the right to have Twinkies. It's our American right to eat junk food. And
Well, as Sonny Kushal, the chairman of the Dairy and the Business Owners Group in New Zealand, says, this is 100% theory, 0% substance. There's going to be a crime wave. Gangs and criminals will fill this gap, he says. New Zealand is determined to achieve this goal of reducing its national smoking rate to 5% by 2025 and eliminating it altogether. And so politically, it's maybe a good political move. You're taking on big tobacco, but when you get down to it, yes, okay, what about what about all the stuff that you find in like deodorants? Are you going to go after like cancer-causing agents that are in plastics? Are you going to go after microtoxins in drinking water from these particular companies? Are you going to target styrofoam next? I mean, okay, great. You want to protect your citizenry against smoking, but look, we tried this in the 1920s in the United States with prohibition. Didn't work. It didn't work. It didn't work at all, actually, and it created an entire cottage industry of bootlegging and an entire criminal underbelly. So I don't know. Good luck with that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting quandary, and there are countries around the world in which tobacco is absolutely not allowed. Period, bar none. And New Zealand could do that as well, but then you'd have all of these people with nicotine addictions coming off of it, and who wants that? Right.
Yeah, good question, though, from Seeking Alpha this morning. It's like big tobacco, is going to be keeping an eye on this now, right? Because, well, if other countries start to follow suit, New Zealand makes this big crackdown. Will parts of Europe be next? Will the EU step in and say, we're going to do this now? We want to be more green. We want to take care. So maybe they'll step in. Of course, when you walk through Europe, good luck with that, right? Like going down the street at any kind of coffee shop, everyone's sitting outside having a coffee and a cigarette, good luck with that.
Well, yes. So my mom and we went to France recently, and they laid out all kinds of like a basket of bread and, some olive oil and stuff. And there was a little glass bowl, and she's like, oh, is this for the olive oil? And the waiter's like, no, that's an ashtray.
That's an ashtray.
And she hasn't seen one in so long because Americans are not allowed to smoke indoors. And the French are like, yeah, we
they all sit out and have a cigarette and a pastry outside.
No, madame, that is for the cigarette. It was so funny that we don't even recognize the accoutrement anymore as Americans, because I will say that it is no longer a part of our public life as Americans. We don't have to worry about that. We don't smell it in the mall or indoors at all. So who knows? Who knows who's going to follow suit on this? But I do think that it's at the very least an interesting way to think about curbing new addictions, right, to nicotine. And I think that's one of the things that Lawrence Lessig talks about, how I think it's Lawrence Lessig, about how Michelle Obama wanted to do this same thing with sugar, to make sure that young people didn't start their sugar addiction so that they didn't have a lifetime of obesity and comorbidities. And the lobbyist groups were like, shut that woman down.
Right.
Do not let her do that.
We need to get these kids to have sugar at birth. It makes them addicted to it.
Right. And so this law is specifically... it is in that vein. It is intended to stop new addictions.
Interesting to see some of the stocks around this too. Looking at Philip Morris down this morning on this news a little bit. Philip Morris here in the center down less than a point.
I'm surprised at how much traction this story has, actually. I didn't think people would show as much interest, and I'm interested in the conversation around it.
Oh, I think it's a huge story. Like a country's going to say no cigars, no cigarettes. Like you cannot. If you're born after 2008, sorry, you're just not allowed in this country.
I could not see in any of the stories if that also means e-cigarettes.
I think it's just tobacco. It's tobacco. From what I can see.
Isn't e-cigarette? I'm sorry, my ignorance. Isn't an e-cigarette a tobacco product?
No, it's a nicotine product, but it has nicotine. No tobacco in it.
There's no tobacco. It has nicotine, but not tobacco.
Okay. I'm ignorant on the difference. I'm sorry. I will not. I'll shut up. I don't know.
Like all the pot you smoke?
Yes.
That has, yeah.
Okay. All right, good. So why wouldn't they include e-cigarettes in this?
Good question. I mean, isn't the issue, don't you're addicted, you become addicted to nicotine. It's not the tobacco that causes the addiction, right? unless I'm wrong, but yeah, you become addicted to the nicotine. So the nicotine is the drug. Tobacco is just the plant.
Okay.
Just the plant. That's
Right. Again, the emission here, I'm just wondering, we don't know.
Well, because maybe they don't care about the addiction. Like, they don't care that you're addicted to nicotine, because that's not going to lead you to go into a clinic and get or health screening for lung cancer. Like, you'll get lung cancer from tobacco.
I think that there are also cancer rates associated with e-cigarettes.
There are. Yes, you're right about that. In fact, if you've seen some of the lung pictures, I mean, it's horrible.
Let's see if the chat room knows.
The e-cigarette stuff. If you've seen the e-cigarette stuff, you'll notice that, the e-cigarettes.
Maybe the chat room. I'm sorry, we don't know.
I mean, there was a thing. There was a thing called popcorn lung that was happening with certain brands of the e-cigarettes.
Yeah, I think vaping.
I think overall they don't like to talk about it because I think the evidence is that it's probably just as addictive when you're adding nicotine to the e-cigarettes, but overall it seems to be a lot healthier than you have less health issues with e-cigarettes and vaping than you do like tobacco products, like smoked tobacco products. So I think they kind of like don't like to talk about it a whole lot because
here this is from Johns Hopkins Medical. What they say, vaping is less harmful than smoking, but it's still not safe. They heat the nicotine extracted from tobacco and flavorings and other chemicals to create an aerosol that you inhale. However, there's been an outbreak of lung injuries and deaths associated with vaping. The cases appear to predominantly be those people who modify their vaping devices or use black market modified e-liquids.
And now they're no longer allowed to add the like raspberry flavor or anything like that because they were worried that was creating new addictions. In many states, that's not allowed.
Right.
Yeah, Washington did that for a bit. They put a ban on because I was excited. There was a vape shop just down the street from me that had a pool table in it, and it was going to be a free pool table. I was like, well, I'll go hang out in a vape shop and play pool all day. then they're like a week after they opened, they put the ban on the flavored stuff in Washington, and so then they shut down, and then that ban.
So you couldn't play pool there.
No, I couldn't play pool then. And then when they reopened after they lifted the ban, they didn't put the pool table in.
So rude.
So this THC, I remember President Trump was upset. Remember after he did the vape ban?
Yes.
He said that that was his only regret as president, I think, that when he did that. It was a knee-jerk reaction that he put the ban on e-cigarettes, or remember the vaping ban for whatever, it was a short amount of time. And it was not from normal, traditionally sold. It was people who had modified these vaping oils and so forth, from what I understand. And those were the ones that were causing the problem. It wasn't from the other companies.
Yeah.
It just destroyed that one company. I forget, was it QE? I forget the name of the company that got destroyed as a result. I think they went out of business.
Okay, well, we didn't properly study the distinction between e-cigarettes.
Well, I didn't even know we were going to talk about e-cigarettes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We should have we'll
smoke them up today to learn more about them.
If I have thought that through, so I'm sure that
what about those
comments later.
What about those candy cigarettes that we used to blow out? The
I
gum?
know. Isn't it amazing that they actually allowed us to make a toy out of something that would later kill you?
I wanted those as a kid.
And it was the worst gum, too. It was like
hard gum.
Oh, it was disgusting.
And it had like powdered sugar in it as the cigarette, as the smoke. And you go, and you only got like 2 puffs before the powdered sugar blew out. How ridiculous.
It's super ridiculous.
I wonder if the tobacco industry had anything to do with that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, like it's made by Philip Morris, Philip Morris cigarettes. Oh, boy.
For the kids.